and lawyers, guns, and money. I don't know. What's to talk about, man? There's nothing to talk about. Anything we could have talked about, we talked about it, right? Come on, think about it. Let's all take a moment. Everybody, just calm down. Think about it. What have we not talked about in the past year on this podcast? Hi, Lisa. Come on. So let me repeat myself. We've covered everything that anybody could ever want to talk about, one night after another. Hi, Becky and Chris. So if there's a topic we forgot to cover, I doubt it. We can talk about it. But in the meantime, in the absence of your input on what subject I have yet to cover, I thought today would be a good day to talk about, guns and life. That's the title. And I think, and I never know, I think that when I say that, hi, Kathy and Rachel and Rose, when I say guns and life, I think I actually perhaps have a topic contained within those words. I left off yesterday. I had to do an abbreviated show because I went to hear a wind concert, which, by the way, I don't know enough about music. I mean, I like listening to music, but I'm not a musician. It's a wind, so most of the instruments were wind instruments, and then there was some percussion. There were people playing, I think it's called the xylophone, and some drum, and a piano. Anyways, they're playing. There were 24 musicians and a conductor on the stage, and the sound was very full. For that few, because they only allow 300 people into the symphony hall right now. We had good seats, so we were up close. No, we weren't up close at all. We were up high, looking down, but we were right in the center is what I meant. And I'm second time I've been to the Wind. My friend Paul has made the arrangement both times. And I really was impressed with the fullness of the sound. And even I, who are not very articulate or experienced with classical music or band music, even I could enjoy it. So, and I did enjoy it. Thank you. Hi, Chris and Becky and Ray Dean. Welcome, Debbie. So let's talk. Can we talk? Isn't there this thing? Wasn't there somebody that says, can we talk? Was that Joan Rivers? Anyways, doesn't matter. Can we talk? We left off on guns. And so, I published my blog on guns. And some of you saw on my Facebook that a friend of mine gave me some pushback. He likes his guns. And he's very representative. Hey, Mark and Ann. My friend Tracy is very representative of my gun friends. I really have this contingent of friends, and I call them friends. I don't know what they would call me, but it doesn't matter. I call them friends, Calvin, Jeff, and Shirley, and Buddy, and Tracy, and they're all seemingly pretty right. They didn't seem to like Obama. They seem to like Trump. They like guns. They don't like gun laws, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just kind of putting a little structure around this. So, it's not surprising I would get pushback. Now, those same people will often push back about things like COVID. I mean, it just seems to be this environment that certain people reside in. And my last comment, because my sister kind of jumped in on Tracy, is like, she was hostile. And I'm like, it's not for me to be hostile. I wish I understood this tenacious clinging to anti-COVID sentiments, to anti-gun regulations. Most of my friends who are in the gun community already own as many guns as they will ever need. Most, in fact, that are my friends who have been my friends, we're past the age where we're ever going to use most of the guns we own. All these guys I just said would, except for Tracy, would be over 60 years of age, maybe over 70, are retired or working part-time. And guns are probably not that big a part of their life. My friend Calvin, he still teaches firearms, so he may be engaged. But Jeff and Shirley are retired. I think Buddy's retired. Anyways, so here I am, and I'm retiring. And so what is this tenacious clinging to this idea that we need our guns? First off, most of us are going to make it to the grave without getting shot with or without possessing firearms. I mean, we're past the point where we're going to be in the action. I don't go to clubs. I'm not even out in the evening time. Most shootings take place in the evening time, except for these mass shootings. They take place in broad daylight. But more people are shot one-on-one. And so I'm not out. I'm not out scoring drugs. I'm not out at night most of the time. I'm certainly not out past 10 o'clock. I am a low risk. And so are my friends, frankly. So why? Why this concern? It's a cultural thing. It's just a cultural thing. And what I saw many, many years ago is I left Chicago, where most of my friends disdained guns, except for the few that I hung out with who enjoyed guns. And they were all black, by the way. I'm just pointing that out because that may be something also cultural. I used to go on Saturdays and shoot the gun range with two black men that I knew. One was a probation officer, one was a private investigator. They enjoyed shooting every week. I enjoyed shooting every week. So the three of us went together. Then we went out to breakfast or early lunch. And I came home and I cleaned my guns. I had a place in the basement set up. I enjoyed it. I didn't mind at all. I moved to Texas. I started a gun range. I owned the gun range. I got out of the habit of cleaning guns. I'll tell you why, because I'm spoiled. The staff would clean them. I mean, they're sitting there. Excuse me, could you clean my gun? Of course they could. They had everything they needed. So I kind of got out of the habit of that. So I just had fun. I literally just get up, walk over, get on the range from my office, shoot 5 rounds or 50 rounds or 500 rounds if I wanted to. And when I was done, come off the range, indoor range, so year round, could be raining outside, doesn't matter. Hand my gun off, and I was really good. I'm really accurate. I'm really fast, or I used to be really fast with drawing and acquiring a target and shooting it. But as I say, my lifestyle's changed. The probability of my needing a firearm between now and the end of my life has gone down dramatically. But there was a time in my life when a gun absolutely made the most sense. Believe me, I've said it before. I was in situations where people were thinking of beating me or killing me, and nothing like presenting a firearm and going, yeah, I don't think so. Okay? So it served a purpose. I don't care what other people's experiences are. My choice to live in the inner city when I was young was a choice. I probably could have stayed like at my parents' house, and the risk to my life might have gone down then, but it didn't. I mean, I lived on the streets and I carried weapons. I didn't carry a gun most of the time, but I did carry a gun when I was 21. I was arrested by the Chicago police at 59th and Wentworth. I was placed on probation. And you remember what? You remember me getting arrested for a gun? I don't think so. You didn't know me. I'm confused. Rachel says, I remember that. She can't remember my arrest. It happened when I was 21. Anyways, so I went to court. I fought it, and I lost. And so I did a year in court, a year on probation. So I stopped carrying a gun. But what I did do is I started training in martial arts in the meantime. So I got fairly proficient at things like Taekwondo, Aikido, and general street fighting. And so in other words, I felt the need to be protected, and I did not rely upon strictly my smarts. I had a lot of them, right? I had a lot of street smarts. I could do a certain amount to dissuade people. I could fake it until I made it. But I honed myself into a weapon. I tell you again, I honed myself into a weapon. When I worked with street kids, there were oftentimes conversations and threats made in my direction. My reaction, my response was typically nonplussed. I didn't get all bent out of shape. I would just say, the odds are you'll get harmed trying to hurt me. But if for some reason you are successful in harming me, you would only be looking forward to the moment when I would catch you and hurt you. So that kept a lot of these street kids. I mean, these kids were in gangs. They carried guns, and they killed people, but not me. I left that after about 5 years, and I worked at Hyde Park Hospital in the detox unit. Pretty safe. I was attacked on the unit by a patient who got out of control and started flinging me around. But that fight got broken up, and I didn't get hurt, just got scared. So in the subsequent years, even when I was married to Lori, and Lori was a really just a solid citizen, she wasn't going to get in any trouble. She was very, very straight-laced. But when she was with me, she could tell you I pulled the firearm out on 2 separate occasions, at least, where I felt there was an immediate threat to my well-being. And I even pulled out a gun at my own gun range. Well, it was really while my gun range was being built. So I had my original gun range on one side of the street, and I bought a property across the street and started building a new range. And these contractors, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of trouble. Anyways, these big old boys, big old bubbas came to repossess some equipment that a contractor left behind. And, I told them, you can't do that. You have to do it legally. You have to go get a court order. And so that time I pulled the gun also because they refused to listen to me. And they were going to remove this equipment by force on my property after I had nicely explained to them, you can't do that. So yes, in that case, once again, I offered to use deadly force. And I was in a lot of fights when I worked in the bars, and I'm in my 50s at this point. So the concept of me being armed should not be alien to anybody. But here, so I have a lot of friends that shoot guns. They love guns. They own guns. And most of them are very responsible, reasonable people. Now, why we can't see eye to eye about regulations, I'm not sure, because the regulations I have proposed are pretty reasonable, if I say so myself. For me, when I talk to my friends in this world, this subculture, I simply explain that what we're asking for, who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket, Ken? What I am asking for, universal background checks. You can implement it literally in 24 hours. Right now, the Senate and the House could agree to a bill to universal background checks, and within 24 hours, you could have people getting background checks before they buy a gun, no matter where they buy the gun, whether they buy it in a store or buy it from a neighbor or buy it from a stranger. That could be implemented. All the resources are already in place. It's really a very marginal regulation, and I don't know how much good it will do, but it's a start. Then there's the issue of tactical or military style rifles, which I talked about yesterday. Far more deadly than a handgun, far more accurate, more velocity, more mass, more everything. Real problem. It has been beat into me for a long time in the gun community that a shotgun and a rifle were superior to a handgun. So if you're going to defend yourself, you ought to have a rifle or a handgun. Well, that would only be true in very limited circumstances, but it took years for me to evolve and see, actually, a handgun in the house, secured, under lock and key. I have a digital safe. Pop, 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 pop. Pops open, gun's there. This properly secured firearm is accessible to me, and whatever you come through my door with, you're not going to succeed if I wake up in time. And here's and wake up in time means doesn't matter if I had a rifle, shotgun, or handgun. You're not gonna succeed, and I'm gonna explain why. So a shotgun is very awkward to wield in closed spaces. A shotgun is a tactical weapon used by law enforcement primarily for what they call entries. Okay, tactical entries. They kick in the door. They've got a shotgun. They can hit anything in that room. Right? I'm not shooting the whole room. Never had an occasion to shoot a whole room with birdshot or slugs or anything. Right? So in that regard, I probably don't need a shotgun. A rifle, high velocity, going to penetrate through my walls, my doors, boom. Do I need it? If you were in my house, 2,400 square feet, you would see that there is no distance between me and anywhere else anybody could stand in my home that I could not acquire and shoot them very quickly with a handgun, much quicker than I could do with a shotgun or a handgun, or a rifle. But people come into my store all the time and tell me they want a shotgun for home protection. I had kids in the house, so a shotgun was not, I couldn't leave a shotgun around. So what's the answer? Well, like I said, I had a small, digitally controlled safe that carries 2 handguns. That's a lot smaller space than a shotgun. I had immediate access to it. It's right by the bed. And if I heard a loud noise, I could arm myself within seconds. If I had secured a shotgun so that my daughters could not access it, then in order to get to the shotgun would have taken longer. Time is of the essence. Time is everything when you're talking about personal defense. Time and distance. I always taught, whether it was martial arts or firearms, you don't want to be in contact distance with whatever the threat is. You don't want somebody to be able to get a hold of you. You don't want them to grab your clothing, your neck, your hands. So I've always told people, get some pepper spray. That gives you about 10 to 15 feet difference. Knives, you got to know how to use them. Guns, you got plenty of distance, right? So when I've talked about personal defense, distance, okay, is an element. Time and presentation. How quickly can I acquire a firearm of any sort and place it in a position to use it successfully to defend myself? Well, I'm really good with a handgun. It's all I need. You could come in my house with a shotgun or rifle, unless you're willing to shoot through the walls. You're probably going to die with a shotgun or a rifle in your hand, because I've got the advantage, home advantage. So what would be the value in me owning a rifle for personal defense or shotgun for personal defense? Well, if I knew I was going to a gunfight, like Doc Holliday, OK Corral. So the whole Earp family is together and Doc Holliday, and we're talking about going over the OK Corral to meet the Clanton gang, that makes perfect sense to have a rifle. You got a lot of advantage at that moment. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle or shotgun. But the whole point of concealed carry, handgun carry, small, is you don't know when you're going to use it. You're walking down the street, you're not on your way to a gunfight, but somebody may try to rob you. So you may have a handgun on you, or somebody's coming in your house unexpectedly. Then there is an advantage to having a firearm immediately accessible. You know, they used to teach me at a gun school. They said, use a handgun to fight your way to a shotgun or a rifle because it's a superior weapon. That's kind of, and I bought it. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Why take a handgun to a fight where you could bring a rifle? Because I don't have that situation. I'm not going to war. I'm not participating in the civil conflict yet. So I didn't need a long gun. I bought them. I've owned them. I've owned some of the most, the finest tactical shotguns made. I've owned them. I've owned some of the finest tactical rifles. I was in the industry. It wasn't a problem. I've had fully automatic submachine guns. I've had automatic machine guns, not submachine guns, machine guns. I've had it all. Show and tell, babe. Show and tell. I still own a shotgun that's this big. Only carries one in the chamber, two in the tube, 3 shots. I only get 3 shots. But it's kind of convenient to have a shotgun that's that small that I could fit in my briefcase when I wanted to. That makes sense to me. A full-size shotgun doesn't fit in my briefcase. So, anyways, what I'm saying is, as I said to Tracy, I didn't say it to him, but I wrote, because I think he thought I was abandoning my moral positions in life. Like, you were always a gun defender, and now you're calling for gun control. You're real wishy-washy. No, my response was, I've grown. I have more information, and I've evolved, and here's my thinking today. I am not going to advocate this freedom of gun, this almost unregulated arena, while people are being gunned down 1, 2, or 20 or 30 at a time. We're not that safe in the United States of America. We're not really, you read about this and you may feel like, oh, hell, I'm afraid to go to the grocery store because look what happened. But statistically, you're pretty safe. But you're not as safe as you would be somewhere else, frankly. In Europe, in Asia, you're not as safe here because of the prevalence of guns. And while there are so many of us who want to raise our hands and tell you how reasonable and responsible we are, the fact is a significant portion of the gun community is irresponsible and unreasonable, actually. And I say that because I give you different examples. How do you store your weapon? My weapons from once I learned when I got into the gun industry, and I learned all the various ways to secure a weapon, because these trigger guards are bullshit. Nobody uses a trigger guard. There's no point to them. You hear about trigger guards, throw them in the garbage. I bought a safe. I put most of my guns in the safe. Why aren't all my guns in the safe? Well, I'll tell you why. Because then I wouldn't have a gun for defense, right? I'm not going to get up in the middle of the night and go to my, not a walk-in safe, but a full-size safe, and sit there and get in the safe and get a gun. So there were guns in the safe. There are 2 other guns, so to speak. One is the one I carry on me at almost all times. And that would get secured when I would come home. I had something, it's called a clamshell. It's a polycarbonate and almost indestructible. And I could place my carry gun, whatever handgun I was carrying, in this clamshell, close it, lock it, put the key in my pocket. That gun cannot be accessed. You could steal the whole thing, but I didn't leave it. It was home with me. The girls couldn't get to it. You could run it over with a car or a truck. It wasn't going to crack. The other guns, the ones I already described to you, they're slightly larger. They're not carry guns. They're home detection weapons, and they were in a different safe. Everything in my house was inaccessible. Inaccessible. I underline that, emphasize that, because I have friends, I love them, but they have guns on display. And if I was to break in their house and I couldn't do anything else, I could steal their guns that are on display, real guns. There are people that have guns in gun cabinets. Gun cabinets, some of you have seen them, certainly seen them in the movie. They're glass cabinets and they hold guns, and you could have something that secured them in there. But in the main, all you have to do is just tap, break the glass, remove the firearms. It's not secure. I know people that just go home, take the gun off, put it on the dresser, and that's how they spend the day. Now, if they don't have any children in the house and they're not leaving the gun out, that's fine. I have friends that take a firearm places where they know they cannot take the firearm inside, for instance, a sports stadium in Texas or something. So they take the gun off and they leave it in the vehicle. Well, I can't. There are people who could steal your stereo in about 3 minutes, and that's connected to the vehicle with wires, and it's in the dashboard. How long do you think it takes them to break in your glove box and steal a handgun? No time at all, right? Okay. So I have friends, reasonable, responsible generally, but I don't approve of some of the things they do that I think are risky. I've carried a gun since 1993 and nobody's ever gotten a gun off my person. Period. That would be a real challenge. Okay. So I'm just saying it's time for so many of us to re-examine our attitudes towards guns, not towards disavowing guns or turning them in or whatever that means. It means that there needs to be a serious undertaking, a re-examination of what types of safeguards could we do. My gun friends, the word safeguard is incompatible with what they want. They want unfettered access to buy guns and to buy and sell guns. In order to move this agenda forward, it would be valuable if everybody sat down and said, well, what limitations can we reasonably put that will be helpful, like universal background checks? There's no reason, and trust me when I tell you, there's not a single fucking reason not to have universal background checks. All that means is that anytime a firearm is sold in the United States of America, that buyer would have to demonstrate they are a legal possessor of firearms and not somebody prohibited by any of the regulations that exist today, for instance. How is that possible? We have what we have. We have people who have access to NICS. NICS is the National Institute of Crime something system. And that's where, when you walk into a gun store, anywhere in the country probably, and you wish to acquire a gun, if you don't already possess a license to carry a firearm, if you have to have a background check, and there's a form. And this form is called 4473. That's just the form the feds gave it, ATF. It fills out. It asks you a bunch of information. Someday I'll read you the information, maybe soon. And then a employee of the commercial establishment where you are buying the gun picks up the phone and calls a number that they have, and somebody answers and they tell them where they're calling from, what they're calling about. They read them the information about the person who's buying the gun and a little bit about the gun, not much. Then sometimes within seconds, usually within seconds, you get a reply. The person on the phone will say, good to sell, hold up, or denied. 3 answers. You can sell it, you need to hold up, or it's been denied. You can't sell a gun to that person. So any gun store in the United States must be federally licensed by ATF. Every single gun store, any pawn shop that handles guns, any commercial establishment in the United States that sells guns. So what's the problem? The problem is non-commercial establishments, people selling guns and not having access to NICS or not caring about NICS. So tomorrow, Ken declares that we have this universal background check, and anybody who wants to buy a gun from their buddy, let's say it's me, you could go to a gun store and say, we will pay you, please run a check and make sure that my buyer is legally able to possess this gun. Can do that overnight. Other regulations about storage, about carry, these are, again, we need people at the table from both sides pushing the agenda forward. But what we have is we have assholes like Ted Cruz, who doesn't know shit about anything, really. Apparently he's a smart guy, but he's garbage. He's human garbage. He's sitting around and he's saying, this is just crap. This is just a Democratic agenda to get rid of guns. Go fuck yourself, Ted Cruz. Go, Ted, listen to me. Camera 2, go fuck yourself. Debbie says, why don't they do universal background checks? I'm telling you that the National Rifle Association, for instance, has resisted this because of what they call the slippery slope. That's one argument. If they allowed universal background checks, 10 days later, 10 months later, the Democrats be asking to confiscate guns. The other thing is, it probably likely would require some sort of registry of guns. And gun owners are like, I don't want the government to know I got a gun. They'll come get it. Well, the more guns that are registered, and pretend tomorrow, all guns in the United States had to be registered. Right now, very few guns need to be registered. It's done state by state. Texas, no registration whatsoever. People always moving here and going, where do I register my gun? You don't. Okay. Let's pretend you did. Let's pretend that 300 million plus guns in the United States were registered tomorrow. How do you confiscate over 300 million guns? You don't have enough confiscators to participate in the confiscating. So that's not going to happen, right? It's just smoke and mirrors. It's just an argument created. Do I care if the government knows how many guns I have? I don't care. Why do you care? Is it you got something to hide? I don't know. I mean, if you want to buy a submachine gun, you've got to tell the feds you're buying it. You must tell the feds. If you're in Texas and you want to own a rocket launcher, or you want to own a machine gun, a fully automatic weapon, if you want to own a rifle or a shotgun with a barrel that is less than 16 inches, you must, by law, apply to the ATF, and you're not applying for permission, you are paying a tax, and that creates a record. So, and submachine guns and machine guns almost never, legal ones, almost never used in crime. They're in the hands of people who are reasonably responsible and can't get away with it because ATF knows where you are. Anyways, so the resistance is just a bunch of hooey. It really is. I sympathize with people that are worried about the government knowing anything about them, because the government is kind of a screwball deal. But that doesn't matter. People are dying. People in Georgia, people in Boulder, people in Connecticut, Sandy Hook, Las Vegas, Chicago. There were a bunch of people killed in Chicago. L.A., the Pulse nightclub in Florida. People are dying. It's time to do something. So start with universal background checks, because it's the simplest, least restrictive thing you can do for firearms right freaking now. Then everybody sit down, initially shut the fuck up, listen, put your brain to gear, and then offer solutions. Don't sit around and tell me it's a Democratic plot, or they're going to confiscate your guns. Whatever the fuck you're saying doesn't mean shit to me. Okay? You ain't offering shit. So you want to prevent confiscation of firearms because you think that's the Democratic plot? Then offer a solution. Don't stick your thumb up your ass and ask me to lick it after you pull it out, motherfucker. You're so full of shit. The Ted Cruzes and the Lauren Boper, whatever the fucking names are, and the NRA. Go fuck yourself, lying motherfuckers. Oh, what was I talking about? Take a deep breath, everybody. Take a deep breath. There's nothing to get excited about. It's just these people that obfuscate and hide the truth in an effort to stymie gun regulations are typically, in my mind, pieces of pond scum. Is anybody trying to get universal background checks passed? Kathy, there have been people trying to get that passed as long as I can remember. I've been advocating it for over 20 years. I was uninvited from the NRA banquets in Dallas and Tucson because of my advocacy for certain limitations on the ability to buy a firearm without a background check. You know, you've all heard the term gun show loophole. It's a misnomer. It's just wrong. There is no gun show loophole. It doesn't exist. But it is, what they're really saying is there's no regulation of the secondary marketplace in most states. California does regulate the secondary marketplace. Illinois somewhat regulates and other states, but Arizona, Texas, most states don't. Here's what the gun show loophole is. I can go to a gun show in Texas, Dallas, Texas, for instance. There will be licensed dealers there. If I buy a gun from them, and this is not their store, this is just their booth. They're selling guns at the gun show, but they've got a store somewhere. They've got a license. Anybody that buys a gun from them will submit to the 4473 documentation, and will either have to provide the appropriate identification to avoid a NICS check, or they will have to submit to a NICS check, period. Doesn't matter. If I'm licensed to sell, I can't sell a single gun without doing that. So what's the problem? Because there are people at the gun show that just rented a table and they're sitting there with guns and they don't have a license and they don't have any regulations. And I can buy from them, I can sell to them without any record. But it's not the gun show. They could do that at the Kroger parking lot. They could do it on Facebook if Facebook would allow it. They could do it on Craigslist. There is no control of the secondary marketplace in most of these states. And it's a simple thing. Essentially, what you are doing is you're applying the same rule as the very first time that gun was bought. Okay? So whether I'm buying first, I'm the first guy that's buying this gun since the manufacturer shipped the distributor sent it to the retailer. I bought it. Okay? Doesn't matter. The 10th person that buys that firearm after it's been sold 9 other times will submit to the very same procedure and process that I submitted to the day I bought that gun at the retail level. That's what we're talking about. And that's not unreasonable. I don't give a fuck what you say. If you're a gun owner and you tell me that's unreasonable, I'm just going to flip you off. I don't give a shit. I know it's reasonable. I know it's practical. So that's a start. If you can't get that done, you ain't getting nothing else done. So that's guns. Life. Why is not, I said guns and life in my title, why is the sanctity of life so not valued? How do you, for instance, pontificate, evangelize about the sanctity of life in relationship to abortion, and then you look me in the eye and you don't give a fuck about anybody else afterwards? Fuck you. Now, I don't mean to offend your religious taste. Bless you. I'm sympathetic that you are anti-abortion. You can remain anti-abortion. I'm used to that. But you can't be anti-abortion and pro-shooting 23 fucking kids in their classroom, first graders. Fuck you. Do you understand? You can't talk to me about sanctity of life, and you ain't going to do nothing after 20 plus children in their first grade class are gunned down, and it's not an anomaly. It's not the one time in our history that happened. It's not a singular incident that stands of its own. It's part of a pattern of people who are fucking out of their minds, who have too much firepower, access to the firepower, and use the firepower to harm people who are clearly, completely innocent. People in a grocery store buying their groceries, even if all the people in Boulder, Colorado at King Super were felons, they were innocents. Unless they were sticking up the King Super when he walked in and shot all the criminals, he was killing innocents. When they shot up the high school in Florida, they were innocents. So you can't fucking talk to me about sanctity of life unless you want to talk about the sanctity of life. I am clear that life is precious to you in the womb. So now take your head out of your ass where you're looking at the womb and look at the landscape. See the gang shootings, and the gang guns mostly came from stealing them from your fucking house. Look at the guys who went in because it's pretty freaking cool. They bought an AR-15. They didn't buy a hunting rifle. They bought an AR-15, and there's a reason for it, and we can talk about it sometime. They bought a military-style rifle, and I said it yesterday. I'll repeat myself. The AR-15 was designed by a man named Stoner, and he designed it for the U.S. military and offered it to the U.S. military as a standard issue weapon. It was an automatic weapon, right? Suitable for the military. The military liked that weapon. Colt took that gun, made it semi-automatic, and sold the shit out of it to the civilian marketplace. Well, and Kathy says something has to be done to prevent these mass shootings. And that we don't know that anything we propose will ultimately prevent the mass shootings. Will universal background checks? I can't prove it because we don't have it. Would restricting and regulating access to AR-15s, or what we call tactical rifles. Would that prevent mass shootings? Don't know, because we haven't done it. People will tell you we did it under the Clinton administration. They'll tell you that Clinton banned AR-15s. No, he didn't. What he did was he banned a certain style of AR-15. You can still buy an AR-15 every day of the week, every day of the year. You can get an AR-15 and use it. It was never banned. Okay, so there's this fairy tale about our history. There are several fairy tales about our history and our relationship to firearms. So what would prevent mass shootings? I don't know. But here's what I know, Kathy. Got to start somewhere. We know what we're doing now ain't working. Clearly. It's happening all over. We ain't stopping it. So we ought to be able to sit and go, well, doing nothing's not working. Let's try something. I don't understand it. I hear it. It's like talking about Trump. You would hear about Trump. You would look at Trump. You go, I don't understand why you would like Trump. I don't understand why we couldn't all agree on certain limitations. Now, it's too late for me to get in the Constitution. Maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow. Maybe not. I don't know. You know me. I don't know what I'm going to say tomorrow. Anyway, it's time to wrap it up and do some meta. Isn't that ironic for me to sit here using profanity and talking about gun violence and the fact that I am amongst the many who carry, who has made a resolution in my head that should the moment come, I would use deadly force for the protection of myself or others. And then I tell you we should do meta. By the way, I didn't talk about the music, and I really should. I know it's late. I've gone overtime. Anyways, it was kind of like, I got to blow this pop stand music, right? It's kind of like, let me get out and, ride my sickle or whatever it is. So I picked out Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild, and I used the video from Easy Rider, although the song preceded Easy Rider. I got Mustang Sally, Wilson Pickett, you all know that one. Black Denim Trousers and Motorcycle Boots by Vaughn Monroe. That I've always liked that song. He had black denim trousers and motorcycle boots. He had a bicycle with a. There's more. I forget the rest of the lyrics at the second because I'm somewhere else. And 409 about a Chevy big block engine 409 that tears up the runway. All right. So we're going to do meta, and I have to be at my meditation in a few minutes, so I'm going to do it quick. If you want to join me, you'd bring your hands together before your hearts. You'd bow your head as if in prayer. You'd close your eyes and take a deep breath. And you would think to yourself, may I be happy, healthy, and free from harm, free from anger, anxiety, and fear. May this practice of ours lead me to greater peace, comfort, security within. May my mother and father, all my family members, and all my friends be happy, be healthy, free from harm, free from violence, free from poor health, free from heart pain, physical pain. May they find the path that leads them to a life of greater peace and comfort. May those persons that I harbor any ill will towards, for whatever reason, justified, unjustified, it's mostly unjustified, may they be happy, healthy, and free from harm. May they too be living their lives in the peace and comfort I seek. May they even find joy. And to all living beings, wherever they may be, whatever they may be, may they be happy, healthy, free from harm. May all living beings live their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. Yeah, trigger guards don't do anything. I mean, I mean, if you're storing the gun long term, a trigger guard's helpful, right, Mark? But certainly, if you're ever going to need it in any time soon, you'd be screwed. I don't use trigger guards. I lock my guns in a safe. That's me. Thank you, Kathy and Mark and Ann and Debbie and Joan and Rose and Rachel and I said Debbie, Chris and Becky and Ann and Mark, and I may have said that 3 times, and Lisa, and I don't know. I don't think I forgot anybody. You know, there may be people never checked in. And if you're on YouTube, I'm sorry I forgot to explain to you how this works. Stay tuned. I'll tell you tomorrow. Peace out.